for that. All right, guys, we are back. So, conversations with Jen. Guys, if anyone who hasn't watched me in the past, my goal is to really open and expand conversations about how to navigate and different tips for navigating emotions and feelings within life, because all of us feel emotions and all of us feel feelings. And if we can hear from other people who have walked the walk, we can potentially get different tips and suggestions of how to support ourselves more effectively. So again, my mission is to really expand the conversations, everything from fear to excitement and everything in between. And I am so grateful and excited to have Sparkle Lindsay with us today. Um, yeah, Sparkle is the author. For anyone who has not already heard, I can't wait to get my hands on it, an actual copy, because then I'll show everybody. Being a Better Me for Me is Sparkle's book, so we'll come back to that. She's also an executive coach, an influential speaker, and a licensed recovery coach with, yay, thank you, Sparkle, with CPFS. That's awesome. So all that being said, Sparkle, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Well, I'm a recovery coach for alcohol and addiction. I also am a motivational keynote speaker, and now I can add author. So I am extremely excited for the journey that I have been on. I just celebrated 2 years of sobriety, May 4th of 2021, and transformation is well and alive. And I am just so blessed to be a part of it right now, a part of my journey in clarity and in inner peace. Just finding where I fit in my puzzle has been just an amazing thing. 2 years ago, I wouldn't have never thought I would be here at all. I thought I would have probably would have been dead. So my life through transformation has really evolved quickly. And I've just been blessed to be able to watch myself grow as that's happened. I've had a lot of fear in this next part of my journey, just fear of jumping in and getting out of the comfort zone.
Yeah.
And a lot of what I do as a coach is helping people figure out themselves, figure out where they fit, finding their inner peace. And that takes a lot of work, Jen, it takes a lot of work. And so a lot of it started with me, I had a lot of things happen to me when I was younger. I was in a wheelchair for 6 to 8 months. I was a college basketball player, but I was told I'd never walk again. And at that point, I didn't use drugs or alcohol or anything. I was an athlete, but my body went through quite a bit. And the fear that I had was allowing my ego to never let me feel the emotions. So I had fear that I had to fix it and I had to be the best. And no matter what, if I couldn't walk, I was going to walk. It didn't matter. But the fear really inside of me was, am I ever going to be able to walk?
Right.
And if I cry, does that mean I've given up? So the fear of crying or to show the emotion of being upset, it actually hindered me for a big portion of my life, until finally I started saying, it's okay to cry. You can't walk? Well, then learn how to walk, but cry through it.
Right.
And enjoy yourself for it. So that was a big portion of what I went through. And then I started noticing that the more I worked on myself and the more I opened up my heart chakra to find compassion and understanding for myself, I started to be able to find it for others. And the fear is starting to just become my best friend.
Yeah.
Because every chance I get, I'm like, this is a place where I can be vulnerable with somebody. This is a place where someone can be vulnerable with me. And this is where the growth really starts. Yeah. So that's what I do as a coach, help people transform, whether it's in addiction, whether it's in, work-life balance, whether you just found out you don't really know who you are. A lot of times we get that, and it doesn't matter how old we are. We could be walking around and never realize who we are. And then before you know it, we realize that. And then we figure out how to get to know ourselves more and more every day. So that's kind of my quest. That's where I'm at. And that's how being a better me for me came about. That's how the tips and tricks to the small pocket guide happened.
I love it. And I have a couple things that I want to come back to,
Yeah.
Sparkle. And first, I want to say hi, Usama. Thank you for
Hey,
joining us. Always good to see you.
it's always good.
Yeah. I agree with this. She is a beautiful soul.
Oh, thank you. Now you're gonna make me cry on the show. That's okay.
That might happen.
With me. I love vulnerability.
Yeah.
You know?
Sparkle, you hit on a number of topics that I would like to delve in more to for our audience, because I think that there are things that people don't always hear about. And when it comes to fear, I think we have a lot of like-minded experiences as it relates to fear holding us back and having to, I had it for years that I had to show up a certain way, right?
Mhm.
And that if I didn't show up a certain way, it meant something, and it meant that I wasn't doing something or not doing something or doing it well enough. You know, what tips do you have for our audience as it relates to that for the folks who are so stuck in they have to do it this way, that it gets them in the fear of making mistakes and just being okay with the process of learning along the way?
Yes. You know, I was just talking about this with my solopreneur coach, Jason Tracy, and the ability to be okay with progress over perfection and loving you for you. You know, self-love. Like, you know, this month is Vitiligo Awareness Month, and a lot of people ask me, you know, my skin's turning white. And the first thing I heard somebody say is, well, there's ways that you can fix that. And I'm like, I don't want to fix it. I like being me.
Yeah.
I love being me in my skin. It's me. It's my unique self, right? Authentic self.
Right.
And I think sometimes we think we have to be like everyone else, but we're not everyone else. We are ourselves. And so that's why I ask people nonstop, do you challenge yourself to be curious about you?
Right.
The more curious you are about yourself, the better things are for you. And you can focus on the things you need to change with you, and everything else will work out as it may.
Right.
And so a lot of the work I do is a lot of practice with my clients on what they intend to have for themselves, what they're deserving of, the belief and manifestation they have in themselves, because it's really a journey with you and yourself through all of it. And who is somebody to tell you that they approve of you
Right.
when they don't even know you?
Right. Right.
You don't even know you. And then they tell you that they have to approve of you, but they don't know you. It's just a bunch of people walking around not knowing anything.
Right.
So when you look at it that way and you simplify it, you're like, well, I'm the only person that knows me, so I better get to know me better, right?
Right.
And so I noticed that. I was like, wait a minute, this person's telling me that I need to go through this, this, and this to be able to speak. Well, why don't I just speak?
Right.
I love to hear my voice. So there you go.
Right. Well, and it's a comfort level that often people, without doing it, they miss the comfort of gaining it, right? So it's that messy, I call it messiness of just getting into it, and may feel uncomfortable sometimes, and may feel like you're playing in the mud.
Yes.
Then through time, you get more comfortable. And until you do it, in my opinion, until you do it, it's going to remain uncomfortable, and you're going to remain in that discomfort of fear. We have a comment that I want to not step over. And very true, Paul. Fear holds all many people back.
Yeah, the comment, fear is your friend now. Being vulnerable is definitely not a weakness.
Yeah.
It's not, because everything that people think, so everything that I think in my head, I may say it out loud. A lot of people are probably thinking it, but they don't think that it's approved.
Right.
I don't care. The difference is that that's how I feel in my heart.
Right.
And I'm here to speak truth, because that is what has helped me save my life and take my life back. There were many times in my life where I felt like, well, I'll just hold that back, or I won't say anything, or that's not really appropriate. Okay. Well, if it's hurting my feelings, if it involves me walking through emotions, if I need to tell somebody that I'm sad, or I don't feel okay, or I'm happy and I'm excited, why can't I tell people that?
Right.
And why can't you tell me you're happy and excited?
Right.
The whole point is embracing the fact that we're becoming something that we never thought we could be every day, because we're constantly changing.
Right.
And so the only time we don't constantly, or we're always changing, right? But when we get stagnant and stuck because of fear, that's when we don't know what to do with ourselves.
Right.
So it's easy to get out, stay in that comfort zone and just be there and then wonder why we're stuck.
Right.
I refuse to be that person. I will never be that person. And I challenge myself daily to say, you know what, Sparkle? It's on and cracking. What do we have today? Today will never come again. So what am I going to do with it? And with that, I say sky's the limit. Sky's to the limit.
Yeah, I love it. You mentioned something else that I want to come back to. You mentioned your journey has been 2 years now, and congratulations on 2 years of sobriety. It's
Yeah.
beautiful. I'm so excited for you. And my journey of healing and really everything has been about 8 years.
Mhm.
And I want to speak to, and I'd love your thoughts for the audience on the journey and the length of the journey. And that no matter, I can tell you, even yesterday, I had some of the lessons that were like, oh, that didn't show up before. That wasn't there. And sometimes I think that it's not a we're there yet. It's a we're constantly unfolding and blooming. Can you speak to how that's impacted your life?
Oh man. I think every day I'm like, wait a minute, where'd that come from? Or every day I'm like, I'm a real piece of work. I didn't even know I had that type of an attitude.
Yeah.
Being able to be aware and mindful of the things we do, the things that I do on a regular basis, I have come to love, but I never realized I did them.
Yeah.
I never realized I'd done them. And being able to take the good with the bad, it just is what it is because all of it is a learning experience. And I mean, I can just recall probably about a week ago, I I never realized how triggered I can get when I don't rest. Like I get triggered in my addiction a lot.
Mhm.
Usually I've been resting really well, but the change of the solstice and all of this stuff, I went a few days without sleeping, and the trigger I felt, right? So I knew right off the bat when there's changes in the atmosphere for me, this is me being aware, me talking myself through it, me talking myself down, letting myself know, like, hey, when there's changes in the atmosphere, when there's changes in your life that happen, you gotta be very, very understanding and fragile with yourself
Mm.
in being curious about the things that set you off so that you can move forward and know, like, dang, I learned something today about
Right.
myself.
Right.
Yeah.
Being kind to ourselves at every step of the journey.
Kind and giving yourself grace. Um, a big portion of my transformation, I've had to give myself grace through guilt, through shame, through cravings, being able to raise my hand and say, hey, I'm craving today. Can someone talk to me?
Yeah.
Being able to say, I need help. These are all things that I had to drop the ego and say, this is just who I am. And I'm okay with that. And that right there, it was a work in progress. Like it took so much patience for me to realize that I'm not in this by myself and that I'm not alone. And as soon as I asked for help, and I say it all the time, people came running. And
Right.
that gave me a blessing to know, like, okay, this is my journey. I'm moving forward because of that. People believe in me.
Yeah. So today we're talking about addictions and behaviors and how that impacts all of us. And I mentioned to you briefly before we started, I have it that most people have an addiction to something, whether it's food or alcohol or drugs or sex or whatever it is. Mine
Mhm.
was food. That was my go-to addiction. It still is. And it's the one that I am aware of and centered around to know if I get out of alignment, generally it's going to trigger a food craving.
Yep.
And this is where I think that we have an opportunity to share with our audience of what emotions and what feelings come in and how we actually cope and deal with that
Mhm.
instead of allowing the addiction to take over on us.
Yes.
Can you speak to that?
Yes, I can. So the first thing I learned through my addiction and the thing I work with my clients is, why do you do the addiction? Can you figure out the why? So the reason why I had a number of things. I was in pain, so I was self-medicating. I had the strong woman phase. I wanted to be strong and I didn't want to ask anybody for help. My pride, right? Those are one of the reasons why I would drink in silence, but I do all this work like I'm fine. Okay. That was another reason why. But what I had to recognize is that in order for me to realize that it was a symptom, because alcohol and addiction or any addiction is a symptom, but what's underneath it?
Right.
As soon as you realize what's underneath it, that thing underneath it is what triggers you to use the addiction.
Right.
I started to realize that like my pride would get in the way. And I'd be like, no, I'm going to do an all-nighter and I don't care what anybody says. And I'm going to use cocaine to make sure it happens. But I still was suppressing it, not realizing that I didn't want to do the overnight to begin with. And I wasn't happy. So as soon as I started to notice what the emotion was, because then I had to realize like it's okay to cry. It's okay to sit in your emotions. And I say it all the time, it's temporary, not permanent. But the problem is that we go around the emotion so much and use the symptom to suppress the emotion,
Right.
that we lose ourselves in it, right?
Right.
So that was what I was doing. I'm over here now crying for 13 years. I ended up in jail. I got into a lot of fights. I had anger, which is a secondary emotion, but never understood what was underneath it. And I was hurt and I was exhausted. And instead of me paying attention to that, I acted out. I acted out with my addiction. So once I was able to get rid of the addiction, or at least stop it, make sure that my mental health was okay as well, right?
Right.
Once I was able to get stable and do all of those things, I had clarity. And the clarity showed me like you just got to walk through the emotion and sit in it. It's going to be muddy, but you can do it.
Right.
And then they said, and we'll even bring somebody in to walk alongside you. And that's when I said, this is the bomb. This is what I want to do as a recovery coach. I want to walk alongside people sitting in these emotions.
Yeah.
And we know we don't like it.
Right.
It's temporary, not permanent. And once you practice it enough, it becomes quite fun because you get to know yourself while you're doing it,
Right. The layers of what's going on, of why that originally showed up.
Yes. So, and that's where I'm at. Like, I'm at that point where I'm like, ooh, I never felt that before. Or I'm like, oh, I feel that person's emotions. My empath is starting to come out a little bit. And I'm like, oh, they're sad. We need to talk about it,
Right.
My intuition is starting to come out because clarity is happening. But I had to go through all of the emotions and all of this and learn how to deal with them on my own without any addiction, just to know that like it's a part of me and it's okay to have those feelings, right?
Right. So you've brought up the heart chakra, which I love. You brought up the solace, which I love. And as someone who does energy work, I'm very curious. Do you bring energy work into your coaching? Do you bring energy healing into your coaching?
That is a great question. You asked that. Me and Jason Tracy were talking about that because a lot of my clarity has came around. For one, my father is a quantum Reiki master. So
good.
I do quantum Reiki with him once a week, and we have so much. It's so great. It's so wonderful to get you grounded. Okay.
Yes.
But then on top of that, with clarity comes, I've seen my ability to be able to actually feel what people are feeling and be one-on-one with someone in their shit and love it and love every part of it so they can recognize that it is beautiful for them. And be able to sit in it. And through that energy, I have to protect my energy. But with that energy, it helps us heal, And so for me, a lot of that, I didn't realize how much energy I hold as far as a healer and being able to be involved with my empath and my intuition. But lately, a lot of my work has been around helping people figure out where they fit in their puzzle through their particular gifts, through empath and through energy and through allowing the chakras to open up. And the heart chakra, it's amazing. What walls are we holding up? Why are we our own demise? Right. And just kind of sit in that in someone's lap and letting them take it for what it is and pick and mess with it and see exactly where they fit. And it really helps you focus on the real addiction. That's yourself.
Right.
it gets away from the symptom because you're like, wait a minute, I feel this way and why, so it becomes a no longer using or addiction thing. It becomes a living thing.
Right.
And before you know it, people start to take what they thought was a mess and turn it into stepping into their power and manifesting what they believe through energy.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I want to acknowledge Kenny, thank you for joining us. And
Hi,
Jen,
Kenny.
thank you.
Hi,
I
Jen.
agree. Good conversation. Okay, you mentioned a couple other good nuggets in there. You're just dropping them all over the place.
No, a channel through speaking. So you just
I love it. And I want to circle back to a minute though for anyone who's through healing. And I love that you brought up that your dad's a Reiki master.
Yes.
There's such a good understanding and uncovering to be done with the healing cohesively between energy work and healing past trauma, because often physiologically we can get so into that emotion from the past. If we're using energy work, we can actually unlock and allow our ability to get past it.
Yes.
Because we're getting past the physiological of the past and we're allowing the physiology of the future instead.
Yes. And my dad, he's actually on LinkedIn as well. Philip Troy Lindsay. He talks about, being able to do Reiki, his quantum Reiki, every way possible, through video, through in person and everything. Because what's cool about it is energy is everywhere.
That it is.
And so like when I am like with him and I'm holding on to it, I can feel his energy, he can feel mine. And it's just like you're in a totally different realm. And the groundedness after it and the opening of the chakras and just the opening of how you feel so rejuvenated, depending on what, my spirit guides say I need, it really, really helps me. And so I found that being around a lot of different energy, different people going through different things, whether people are manic or bipolar, schizophrenic, sometimes we have to be grounded in those places. We have to be able to sit in that and protect our energy as well, with our different angels and so forth. So this is a part of, Jen, this is wild because this is a part of me that I haven't talked about much quite yet, because I've been going through the journey of this energy that has been giving me the power to help others help themselves one step at a time. But it feels so empowering to watch people take it and run with it. And just be curious about themselves through their gifts, through energy and so forth. But the way to see that, we have to have clarity.
Absolutely.
And a lot of times we've got all these things up in front of us. We can't see what's in front of us.
No.
But as soon as we let down that guard, open up our heart chakras, be more vulnerable with ourselves, everything opens up. And you're just like, has that been there the whole time? What have I been doing?
I'll tell you what, I am in my last 8 years, the cellular, emotional, and the energy aspect of healing. I don't know if I'd be as far where I am today without that, because letting all that go has released anxiety and has allowed me to deal with anxious moments in a completely different way and dealing with those moments of doubt or other things that come up.
And also doing things like understanding that you become one with your shadow person as well.
Yep.
Becoming the full mind, body, and spirit package is what I search for and help people search for in themselves. I don't want somebody to have an addiction and just stop the addiction. Okay, that's I don't want to say that's the easy part, but it is. Yeah. Because the part of it is that you no longer want a lot of that to be a part of you. Drinking and drugging or whatever is always going to be a part of you, but it doesn't define you. And so it's important to start figuring out where you fit without it. And that takes the work. That's where going inside, walking in the emotions, sitting in them. Like the quantum Reiki is another form of therapy without actually talking through the therapy with the therapist. Right. You're actually healing yourself and what you need to work on. Right. And so it gets deep. I mean, there was one time I was on the table and I literally, for the entire hour, I just cried. Yep. I cried and I had to release a lot of stuff, like my inner child, just things that even my inner child has protected me and put up walls in my heart. And I have to go back through all of that. And it gives me chills when I think about it, because there's still so many little different elements that set me off.
Yeah.
And I'm just now starting to remember them by going through this journey with me. And so as soon as you start doing it, you start being like, wow, I did not realize I was still holding on to that.
Yeah.
And it gets deep, because you are becoming deep with yourself. You are becoming one with the shadow person. You're taking yourself as a whole person and saying, let's do this
Right.
together, mind, body, and spirit. And then you wake up and you watch your growth.
Right.
It is so cool. It's one of the greatest experiences. And most of the clients I work with, and ones that I've been with for a year or so now, they're getting into the quantum Reiki as well. And they're just like, Sparkle, this is just wild. I can't, they just can't believe. They're like me, like, wow, we've been doing some work.
I love it.
Working, girl,
I love it. We're going to have a backup show talking about energy. That would be a good time.
Yeah, we are.
Yes,
we do.
That's coming next. Okay. You mentioned earlier, and I think it's such a big one that I don't want to step over, is accountability of us. I really have it that when we just take accountability and responsibility for the journey we're on and the spaces that we're walking through and the path that we're going, that it allows healing faster, better, differently. What are your thoughts on accountability?
Well, in my book, it talks about pulling a feelings list and asking yourself how you're feeling each day. And the reason why is because you can meet yourself where you're at daily.
Right.
Meaning that if you woke up on the wrong side of the bed, you can check yourself out the door and realize, I need to take a chill pill.
I love it.
I need to take a chill pill, and whoever I talk to, I need to ask them how they're feeling, because it could be not the greatest communication today or this time or this hour. Checking in with yourself daily and meeting yourself where you're at is the true gift to being able to hold yourself accountable.
Yes.
It's the true gift of being able to love yourself for you, no matter how you are, no matter what you do. And like I said before, there's times when I sit down and I'm like, ooh, Sparkle, you a real piece of work. What were you doing? You need to hold space for yourself. Like, this is unacceptable. But talking to myself about that and recognizing that, the next day I'm like, oh my gosh, I'll have a recovery. I have a client who's like, I got mad at such and such because of this, this, and this. And then I'm like, did you wonder why you got mad about that? And they're thinking, I was trying to create chaos because I want to use. And I'm like, so it's okay to call yourself a real piece of work.
Yes.
Because you start, and then they're like, so I'm like, so recognize that. For me, when my milestones get like where I'm about to be, let's see, July 4th is going to be 2 years and 2 months for me, right? So when I notice that, I'm like, uh-oh, I got 6 days until the 4th. That's how I look at it. And I start to notice my mannerisms. And I'm like, uh-oh, it's time for me to hold space for myself. I'm irritable. I'm a real piece of work. I need to take some time and I need to recognize it. Okay. Doing that holds me accountable for the things I'm doing so that I don't yell at someone else or start some chaos, then create cravings. I know that there's a time when this happens for me, and I'm okay with saying I need some time for me.
Yeah.
And that right there is so hard for us to do. But when we do it and then we clear our minds and our heads of all the racket, we come back rejuvenated. Yeah. We have to do it for ourselves, and that's where we hold ourselves accountable and saying, I can be a real piece of work if I don't do this. Yeah. And I can say that to everyone that's out there that's listening.
Yeah. We all can.
And I'm okay with that, right? And I'm okay with that for me too. And that took work. That took work to realize it, but now that I realized it, the growth from it,
right?
The growth from it is amazing,
Well, I think along that line, letting the people who are close to us know I'm having a day.
Yeah.
And just acknowledge it may come out messy today, and I may be off center, and I may be a piece of work today.
Yes. Yes.
Because what I've learned is that my husband and I have been together 22 years. And one of the things I've learned is when I'm having an off day or when he's having an off day, we need to warn each other.
Yes. Yes.
Today,
Yes.
I'm emotionally depleted. I'm escalated, whatever that looks like. And just in that communication,
Mm-hmm.
can prevent things
Yes.
from
I
starting.
think in my book, actually, it's here. It talks about the last tip, which is the quote I wrote was miscommunication is a natural part of communication. Okay. And so I said there's three basic essentials to what we do. We say we're good at, but we never practice. Okay. That's patience, listening, and communication. We say we are the Lisa Leslie of those things, but we don't practice them. Because I didn't. And when I found out, I'm like, I'm not a very good listener. I need to practice this more, but they're so basic.
Yeah.
So what I said is when having a conversation with people, focus on acknowledging and validating the topic along with its contents, as well as finding compassion for yourself and others as you work your way through it together. So when you validate a conversation, the first thing you do when you talk to someone, even if it's your husband, ask them how they're feeling when you wake up. Don't ask them about did they take the trash out? Just ask them how they're feeling. Use words. Words have power, right? So when you use words that say, I'm actually pretty determined, but I'm anxious. Maybe they have an interview, or maybe there's something going on there, right? Yeah. So now you can start to validate what the conversation is and acknowledge it. And then now you know what it is, so you can have compassion for one another while you walk through it together. Right. And I think those are steps that we don't follow in communications. We just communicate, and sometimes we don't listen.
Yes.
Everybody's just going around in circles, and then everybody just leaves.
Right.
We don't know what we got out of it, but we did something.
Right. And everyone walks away with a different perspective. Exactly. And what they left with. I agree. Yes. So good things. And I want to be responsible of time. We're beyond 30 minutes. Sorry to keep you.
Oh, sorry. No, you're fine.
I love it. Okay. I definitely want to have you back, Sparkle, to talk more about the energy piece on a second show, if you're open to it. You are an absolutely beautiful soul. And I'm so grateful to have you in my space and have you as a part of all of our audience here.
For sure.
Final tips on that key piece of dealing with the emotions that show up around addiction or patterns that you want to leave everybody with.
Well, I say that if you are hurting, first thing I always say is if you are hurting or you're in pain or you need to talk to somebody, please call the hotline, the crisis center hotline, wherever you're at. Ask for help. I'm always available through DM on LinkedIn and all the social media things. So if it's something that you wanted to do a discovery call and just kind of talk about where you fit in your puzzle, see if we're a good fit. Maybe there's some things that we talked about that are kind of going through your head and you're like, I feel like my intuition's pretty badass too. Then that's okay. Contact me. I would say this though, encourage yourself and challenge yourself to be better for you. Being a better me for me, the book I have is really self-reflective. It's little tips and tricks to help you be better daily and gives you a little bit of sunshine each day as well. I send a lot of quotes. I send quotes every day. I'm at 785 quotes within 2 years. And I can say that it's all self-reflective. Really consume yourself with it and ask yourself the questions. Ask yourself how you can be better for you. And remember, it's the courage to change the things you can for you. Focus on that, relinquish control, and allow the universe to take care of the rest. And if you do that, everything will work out. You'll be a well-oiled machine and you'll be able to feel with your heart and with the vulnerability and have compassion and understanding like we want to have. And then be mindful and aware of things that that no longer serve a purpose for you. If they don't, then don't hold on to them. It's not yours to keep.
I love that. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Guys, I'll put all of your links in the comments so everyone can find you, and we'll chat again soon. Bye, guys.
Bye.